Hey, welcome everybody. Those who are tuning in on our live stream, and for those on the podcast listening channel, I'm here with Jonas from Icebug Experiences. Jonas, you're in Gothenburg right now, is that correct?
Yes, Gothenburg, Sweden.
Nice. And did you grow up there? Is it you've always been there, or are you kind of like a local of the area?
Well, I've been living around and in Gothenburg for my last 30 years. Before that, I'm born in Melbourne, Australia, but I got Swedish parents, and we moved from Australia when I was about 4 years old. So that's why my English isn't Aussie and not perfect either.
That's okay, man. That's not a problem. And so, growing up, you moved from Australia. I think you also lived in Iran. Is that correct?
Yes, we lived in Tehran, the capital of Iran, for a year before the revolution. So around 76, 77, 19, that is.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And
I actually learned how to ski downhill in Iran.
Really?
Yeah. They got the trick Alps to ski in.
Okay. Wow. Cool. So I definitely want to talk about trail running, but kind of a little side topic before we get into it. It's a sport that I only discovered by talking to you, and I'm shamelessly not very Canadian in that sense. But I wonder if you could tell me a bit more about bandy. I know you love that game, and you play it a lot. So tell me what the passion is with regards to that.
Well, bandy isn't very well known in Canada. It should be, but it isn't.
Yeah.
You actually turn up sometimes in the World Bandy League as a team in Canada. Well, it's on ice, but it's outside most of the times. And the pitch is big as a soccer field, and you play 11 against 11. And you don't play with a puck, you play with a hard ball instead. And you don't use hockey sticks, you use shorter ones called bandy sticks. So it's the game looks very much the same rules as soccer, but on ice with a stick and a ball. And it's extremely fast because you got this quite large pitch so when you skate can come up in really high what do you call it? It goes very fast.
Yeah, and can you body check? Is there body checking as well?
No, you're not really allowed to body check. Because of the speed, you will injure yourself.
There you're going.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, it's a fantastic sport. Sweden, Finland, and Russia is the three largest countries in bandy.
Awesome. And this brings me to my next question. So how did you get into trail running? What was the beginning of that? What kind of got you into that and the passion behind it?
Well, when I was younger, I was quite good at running, but I didn't pick it up, or nobody else in my environment picked that up. And I trained judo for like 10 or 15 years.
Okay.
I wasn't particularly good in judo, but I did it anyway, which is a great sport. But and then I injured myself quite severe, and so I never thought I would be able to run after the quite. I was sitting in a wheelchair for half a year when I was around 20 years old. So anyway. And I always liked running. I did some half marathons when I was younger.
Okay.
I did quite good, but then I dropped that, and then I was in my boat. I was kind of depressed, and I had a restaurant that went bankrupt, and I was in my sailing boat. My children were in failing school, and I had nothing to do, so I read a book about from Haruki Murakami, which is his self-biography, what I talk about when I talk about running.
Yeah.
And it's about his life and how he started running and became an author, and he used to be in a restaurant business before that. So I took that book aside and I started running, and I was quite good at it again. And at the beginning, it was asphalt running, and going for a record in half marathons and stuff like that. So that's how it started, and then as I started at Icebug, which is more of a outdoor brand, and we don't make any asphalt shoes, I become in love with the forest and trail running.
Nice. And so you pick up this book, you read this book, it gives you the urge to run. What was sort of, how did you get into Icebug? Like, where was the start with that? You kind of had mixed your passion with work. How did that come together?
Well, it's quite fun story, and it's actually true. But as I started running, my wife gave me a pair of Icebug shoes, spike shoes for winter running.
No way.
And I was, what's this? And I say, well, so you can run all year round. Icebug, I never heard of them before. And well, she said, well, it's a Gothenburg company, and so I start looking Icebug up, and I love the shoes, and I love running the trails in the winter. It's magical. So, and then in my I promised my wife after my bankrupt that I'm never going to open a restaurant again after being in that business for 20 years.
Yeah.
So I sat down with a friend and I said to him for lunch, and I said, I'm thinking about writing a letter to Icebug and saying, yeah, I'm interested in work. And he looked me in his eyes, in my eyes, and said, you're not really the type who writing letters. You're the type who knocks on the doors. I said, yeah, that's true.
So you just showed up. You talked to the CEO just like that, and then the Icebug experience became one. Like what was the time frame here?
Yeah, well, I knocked on the Icebug's door in September, saying, hey, I'm to work here. And as I've been, Gothenburg is quite small town, and I've been in the restaurant business for 20 years. So lots of people know me. I'm not sure they, yeah. So we start talking, and after a while, I asked them why they didn't do a winter running series. And he said they've been thinking about it, they didn't have the time and all the knowledge. So I went home, I wrote a concept and sent him an email one day later. And in January, we had the first Winterrun, and then we had 10 Winterruns that 3 months from south of Sweden to north of Sweden, which is a quite large, yeah. So that was it. 10 runs in 3 months.
So let me get this straight. You started in you wrote to you showed up. You met him in person in what, like September. Well, a couple of days later, a day later, you pitch him the plan, and then 3 months later, your first event goes live.
Yep.
was it challenging? Like how'd you manage to pull it off?
Well, I'm quite good at it.
Okay.
I'm not afraid of picking up the phone and doing things. So just do it. It's not that big, and Icebug is a very brave company, and they challenge you to do wrong because that's how you learn. So I wasn't afraid to do some mistakes or I mean, at some point at one race in the middle of Sweden, showed up 34 people. So it wasn't a huge success the first year, but it was something.
Okay.
It was good in Stockholm and in Gothenburg. It showed up around 500 people.
Wow.
So we could tell that we were something. We were tracking something.
Okay. And what was the trail community back then in Sweden like? Like how did you find sort of people who were interested in this? You know, did you just go out in the woods? You're like, oh, this guy probably wants to join the Winterrun this year. Like how do you find them? Like today you have, I know on for example Strava, you have your Strava group. I imagine there's a Facebook group for the Icebug experience. How did you find them back then in the early mid 2000s?
Well, at the start, we asked in every city where we did a Winterrun, we asked the orienteer club to help us to arrange the race.
Okay.
So, and they got, of course, lots of people running in the woods or trail in their community. So that was really how we did it. And then we did lots of advertising at Facebook and Google and stuff like that. And that was how it started, using the orienteering clubs.
Okay.
Around in Sweden. It's a huge sport in Sweden.
Okay.
It's a very big community.
So it is very big. And has it grown a lot in the last sort of 12, 15 years? What's it like today compared to back then?
Well, it's grown tremendously. Most of the big city races, assault races in Sweden, has lost a huge amount of participants.
Okay.
But you can run around Gothenburg. You can actually run a trail race every week.
Okay.
Somewhere, if you just travel 1 hour around Gothenburg, you can run a travel or use it for COVID, of course.
Yeah, of course. And so since then, you've organized something, I think like I was trying to estimate here because it's like 10 races a year. So you're somewhere around 80 races. Do you have any favorites? There's a couple that stick out for you personally that you were like, man, I love this one.
Well, I actually got two.
Okay.
And that's West Coast Trail. Mm-hmm. And it's a trail race on the west coast of Sweden, mm-hmm. which isn't that much in the woods. It's more out of the cliffs, very close to the ocean. And we got a very special archipelago around West Sweden. It's magnificent, and it's very, very special. So for 3 days, the participants run, walk, or run, walk 75 Ks, okay. Divided in 3 stages. And we have people from all over the world coming and do that. Actually got lots of Canadians coming every year.
Nice. Yeah. You mentioned that there was a lot of international participants. How many countries that are represented for this the West Coast Trail Run?
Around 30.
Okay. Wow.
We have people from Singapore, New Zealand. We had one 18-year-old girl from Brazil.
Okay.
Coming up and do the race. So we got people all over the world.
That's cool.
And then, of course, it's a frozen lake marathon, which is it's so fantastic to run a marathon or half a marathon completely on ice. So we rent a car track. It's a testing arena for cars in Norway.
Okay.
And we rent that track for a weekend. Okay. And then we organize a marathon and a half marathon ice.
But you just answered my. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
It's a really mind game, which we didn't think about when we organized, because you see all the track all the time. So when you are at the end of the track, you see the finish line, and you have like 20 Ks to run, which is a mind game.
It's cruel, is what it is.
It is really cruel.
And I have so many questions about the Frozen Lake Marathon. So first of all, you talked about the vehicle. You know, the ones that we have for ice rinks in Canada, we call them zambonis. Is it kind of like a zamboni? So you rent a zamboni, you just like sort of clean up the sort of trail on the frozen lake, and the participants can now see it, and then they just follow it. Is that how it works?
Yeah, as they drive cars on the track every day, they plow it every time it snows. It's more like a road on the ice, completely on ice.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it's really cool.
And from my understanding, there's an event the night before where participants have torches. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Well, actually, because of the Corona situation, we had to cancel the race 3 days before this year.
Okay.
So we never really did that.
Okay.
We were so we have never tested that yet.
Okay.
So hopefully we'll test it
in the
next
future.
Year.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but that would be cool. It was a warm-up race, and it would be like 5K warm-up run with torches and fires and stuff like that.
That's so surreal. And you know, I imagine there's been years where it's been nice and years where it's not been nice. I've seen.
Actually,
go ahead.
I've actually had a quite nice weather both times when we're arranging it.
Okay.
The first year we did it in early April, and some people run in just a t-shirt and shorts.
Mm-hmm.
Just like around 0.
Mm-hmm.
And last year, and the year after that, it was like -2 when we started.
Okay.
In Celsius.
Yeah. Yes. A little cold in Fahrenheit.
Yeah. And the thing is, what we not want is lots of wind.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's on and we've been lucky enough not to have lots of wind.
Yeah, and I had another question. You know, I've seen video clips of some of the participants from previous years for the Frozen Lake, and sort of the interviews. They're just, you know, these people are high on life. They're ecstatic. Can you tell me more about like what goes, like somebody who's experiencing this? What's sort of the feeling? How do they feel when they do this trail run? Like what's going on in their emotions, their body? What transpires for those who don't really do trail running?
Well, hard question, but as we are quite good at never talk about how tough a race will be before, or altitude, or it's the hardest this or toughest this. We always talk about how lovely the environment is, or what nice atmosphere it's going to be. So we got almost always at all our races more women running than men. So we created a ambience before the race that's quite chill, because lots of race talk about Death Valley or tough as this, and more like for a male community, and we talk more about the women's community, and so what we try to do is get people in the right state of mind coming there, enjoying it, and lots of people never done 75 Ks in 3 days before. Lots of people never ever run 20 Ks before they enter, and then when they push their boundaries, of course, they will be happy afterwards if they're not injured. But you know, it's and we often, or I always try to do the most stunning views and most stunning. So the environment speaks of itself.
Yeah.
So that's what people happy about it.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up because I did want to ask that because I know you've mentioned this to me personally previously that the west coast of Sweden is just, you know, it's a wonderful, very beautiful place. I mean, I know that the Tainum rock carvings are a UNESCO site. It's a little bit further up north, but
Yeah.
what makes, you know, in your opinion, what makes that west coast of Sweden so special, in your opinion, and those who participate in some of Icebug's events?
It's absolutely that you run a very close to the ocean all the time, or most of the
Mm-hmm.
time. And then we have the granite cliffs are very, very smooth. They've been under the ice for thousand years that they sandpapered them down to like, it's fantastic to run on them.
Okay.
And then you run through some small fishing harbors, old fishing harbors, and it's lots of different environments. So sometimes you run through small woods, and then out seeing the firehouse, and you know it's very, very special and very cool.
Oh, that's awesome. And you know, going back to sort of organizing, you know, something like the West Coast Trail, you know, you know, if I'm Jonas, what's my like preoccupations here? How do I make sure that this goes smoothly, that nobody gets lost, that everything, you know, works out in the end? Like what's sort of like how does that work as an event organizer like yourself?
You have to like excel, and you really need to love planning. And
Okay.
it's something like because I'm from the restaurant business, and what the restaurant business really learns you is it levels in the details.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about details, and you have to be squirting all the details all the time to get it better year after year. Can't really be satisfied of how a race is.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost never ever feel satisfied after a race, because I always think about what went wrong, what I can do better next time, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that's you need to have that kind of a mindset when you are organizer of these kinds of events. You can
Yeah,
always
cool.
do better.
That's a nice that's putting the ceiling really up high.
Yeah.
And that leads me to the next question. For this episode, you know, I called you the challenger. Do you have an idea why that is? Why do you think I chose that denomination for you?
I'm not really sure.
uh, that's a good retort for me. But I remember it's because when we first met and we first started talking. I remember when you told me that, you know, for some of these runs, it's imperative for you to sort of visualize it, and so you'll go and you'll push yourself harder. You'll run the whole trail. You'll explore, and you'll make it more challenging in a way. And I found that super compelling, not just for travel, but just in pushing sort of the experiences to the next level. You know, I imagine this is something that you constantly do, not just in your work life, but also in your personal life. Can
Yeah.
you tell me a bit more about that?
Well, when I plan a race, of course we have to find the right location
Mm-hmm.
first, and then it's hours of running to find the best trail. And then you have to talk to the landowners, and then you have to redraw everything and go out and run again, of course. But you actually need to know every small turn as in your back pocket.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite important to understand that you really need to know your track very yeah.
Cool. So going into a bit more on the sort of event organizer side, back when you first started in sort of 2008, the game was kind of different. Today, now you have sort of what you call these discovery platforms. You have racing or running calendars. You have registration platforms. You have social media. You have athlete influencers. What's your take on this, like, specialization? Has it been better for trail running, or has it been like now it's just like there's so many things, it's hard to find what really suits you?
Well, you have to look them all up and
Yeah.
understand how they work,
Uh-huh.
and then you have to try to go for the best, or partner up with the best ones, or the one who suits you best. I don't think it's necessarily been harder. I think it's getting better. But it's a constant change, which is quite fun, but it's quite hard as well. One year you can put $1,000 at Facebook advertising, and you fill up the race, and the next year you have to put in 10,000, and nobody shows up, and everybody moved somewhere else. And so that's quite challenging and tricky, I believe, to see what's working this time. But more and more people and more services create that help you get people on the start line, which is fun, I believe.
Right.
And look at Strava, what an extraordinary trip they've been doing. It's fantastic that not only the elite runners use Strava or bicycles. Lots of people use it nowadays.
Yeah, like amateurs like myself. Yeah, it is. And I get to follow my friends in Scotland who love trail running in a way that, I don't really follow them otherwise. I can see that they're also enjoying the outdoors, and it kind of like prompts me to be a better person in a way. And that comes in sort of this trail community. Going back to that, there was a Guardian article that came out 2 years ago, and they quoted a platform called Run Ultra, and their race calendar. And according to the article, the sort of trail running has gone up like 1,000% in terms of the amount of events. Do you think this growth is sustainable after COVID? Do you think it's still going to keep at that same pace, or do you see it like slowing down?
I think we've just seen the start of it.
Oh, really?
And especially because of the COVID, that people can't go to the gym anymore. They can't be indoors training, at least not in Sweden. And lots of people going outdoors. I've never seen so many people running the trails the last half a year. It's exploded. And not only running, walking with dogs. It's so many people in the woods nowadays. It's not only doubled, it's tripled. And as it's lots of people injure themselves running on asphalt, or because running on asphalt is so much about running on time. But when you run trail, you can't really you can't run. You can't use the watch saying I'm going to do this in 4 minutes per kilometer, because you got the surface and you got the altitude and the trails. And one day it can be slippery, another day it can be icy or whatever. You can't really push you that hard in the same way as the asphalt. And I don't think the human body is really designed to run very hard for long asphalt.
No, and that brings a good point that I've read about, and my partner is a physiotherapist, and she'll say that, but like it's very healthy for the body and for your legs, and especially for your feet, to feel different surfaces and sort of have this unpredictableness of like hitting a new surface, a new twig, a new branch, a new rock. That's actually better for your mechanics as you grow older. Is that something you'd agree with as a trail runner?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All the small muscles that you use when you're running in trails, they will help you stay healthier when you get older.
Mm-hmm. So we talked about your book. I'm gonna talk about my book. It's Born to Run. I read this book. I loved it. And there's a passage that I really wanted to talk to you about because it sort of talked about the beginning of the industry in the like early mid 2000s. And I wanted to have your take on it. And so basically the author here is talking about Jen Shelton, who's a ultra runner, and he's saying, you know, whenever an art form loses its fire, when it gets weakened by intellectual inbreeding and the first principles fade into stale tradition, a radical fringe eventually appears to blow it up and rebuild it from the rubble. Young gun ultra runners were like the lost generation writers in the 1920s, beat poets in the 1950s, and rock musicians in the 1960s. They were poor and ignored and free from all expectations and inhibitions. They were body artists, playing with the palette of human endurance. I've seen sort of, you know, clips of things that you've put together, and I see this in just the regular participants. Is this something that you kind of like see, not just in yourself, but in other ultra trainers? This sort of gun-ho approach of like, I'm enjoying the outdoors. I'm even traveling to a different country in this way. What do you think of that characterization?
I think that's pretty much what I see here in Sweden as well. It's something about running in the woods that I would actually say that make me a better person. I'll being in the woods is, I think we got something in Sweden called wood bathing, that just going out and embracing the forest. I'm not sure you have that sentence in English, but just, you know, just to be in the woods, running, being free, don't have that pressure on your shoulders. It makes you a better person. That's what I say. They talk about in Born to Run, how running transform your brain, and sometimes you can be a better person of it. I'm not sure it's that answer your question, but
it not only answers my question, I think I couldn't have scripted better, because at the same passage, like right after the next page, the author quotes this girl, Jen Seltzer, and she says, I started running ultras to become a better person. And I mean, yeah. I heard it from you, from a different part of the planet. And I you know, I strongly believe it. I run in the woods a lot. I get, you know, even when I go on my outdoor adventures of canoe camping, I feel the same way. And I couldn't agree more. I'm really glad that you share this with us. So talking sort of about, you know, after the pandemic, you know, with regards to travel and sort of these experiences, now that the virus is sort of going to be eradicated through vaccines and such, do you see the sort of cost of travel and experiences like these ultra runs go up because of demand going up, or do you see it sort of because now more people are going to want to organize them? It might be better for the participants.
Well, what I can see from my point of view, and when I talk to the Swedish Tour Board, is that people tend to travel more like exploring things. If you say that the typical tourist for 20 years ago went to a beach, stayed at a hotel, and went home after a week, if we can say that that was typical 20 years ago, nowadays you travel to explore things, and you run to Medoc Marathon and drink champagne every kilometer, dressed up for like Pippi Longström or whatever, and then what I see is that the new generation trail runners in it's more of a bucket list run. Like 20 years ago in Gothenburg, we have the largest half marathon in the world, it was very, very common. People talked about, I have to do this race every year. And that was like, people bragged about, I've done this 15 years in a row. And I was, cool. Nowadays, nobody brags about that anymore. People brags about going to whatever race. I mean, it's much cooler to do New York Marathon or doing the big 7 marathons or doing a frozen lake marathon than I done this 15 years in a row. So that's and even when I talk with the tourist board that study this type of movement a lot, they say that's the new trend. People travel to explore and do, not just laying on the beach.
Right. So the reason for their traveling is because they're into this ultra trail running or endurance or outdoor activities, and that's the reason for the trip. And I couldn't agree more. So we talked about advice earlier. Let's just say, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to pick up ultra running for the first time? And obviously they're not going to run a 30K, but what would be your advice, for a first-time runner?
I would say that the most important is to move almost every day. You don't particularly have to run every day, but if you can take 1 hour outside, running, walking, jogging, but prepare your body to move for a long time. It's a good, and don't get injured. Don't run too fast, too long, too quick. That's. I did my first ultra marathon when I was 2014. It was 90 Ks. We got a famous skiing race in Sweden called Vasaloppet.
Yeah, the Loppet. Yeah,
Vasaloppet. And they have the same track during the summer for running or bicycling, mountain bike. So I did the first year there. It was 90K, and it was a fantastic experience. A little bit hard to get in the car 2 days afterwards, but it was fantastic fun.
Nice. So I understand that you're actually, despite being there for 8 years and Icebug being basically your passion, from what I gather, you're actually leaving Icebug. What's your next upcoming challenge?
Earning money.
That's a common challenge. It's a common challenge.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, I got 4 children and the wife, so I need to get the money on the table, isn't it? That's quite a big challenge, and I will still be in the industry, and I got some really cool events going on. I can't speak too much about them right now because they are not ready to launch. But I hope in a few months we can launch the idea that's on the drawing board.
Okay.
But it will be fun. It will be some kind of a bucket list adventure.
Okay. So it'll be on par with Frozen Lake and West Coast Trail. We can assume so.
I hope so, and I do hope that Icebug will be a partner of it. So we will. I have 8 fantastic years at Icebug, and it was time to see if I can fly by my own.
Okay, cool. Now that this is my first episode, thank you so much for coming on. But if you were in my shoes, who would you have as a next guest?
Ooh,
I know it's a tough question.
Haruki Murakami.
Okay. I'll make sure to send him an email. We'll see what he says. Thanks for the suggestion. Listen, Joseph, one last question. If people want to talk to you or get in touch with you about trail running or your next experience, what's the best way they can reach you?
Yeah, they will find me at LinkedIn and
Okay.
or Facebook. Jonas Svengård is just one. It's just one Svengård, Jonas Svengård in the world. So you can't miss me.
Okay, all right, that's great. Jonas, thank you so much for coming on board. It's been more than a pleasure. I love what you're doing. I think I had you on because I think you push traveling and especially experiences to a whole different level. And I can't wait to see what new crazy, beautiful outdoor thing that you're gonna prepare. And thank you again for being a part of this.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right, skål. Take care. Bye bye.
Skål. Take care. Bye.